Painting for more than 20 years, New Jersey-based artist Javier Soto is known for his world-class stylized automotive mural work, portraiture, photorealism, and versatility. The work is especially clean and detailed, and he can adapt to any style, from biomechanical and fantasy to pinups, graphics, and more. Soto's artwork is dynamic, and his use of color is unique and brilliant. Airbrush Action magazine ranks Javier Soto among the top 10 automotive painters in the world, and the following presentation will prove why.
Hi, I'm Javier Soto from Fairview, New Jersey. I've been airbrushing for 20 years and custom painting for 10. I'm here to show you how to render some of the most sought-after textures, flesh, chrome, and more. Let's get started. First, let me introduce you to the painting I'm going to do. It's going to be a sci-fi fantasy image. Before we begin this project, we have to prep the surface. Let me show you how I do it. Typically, you'd use sandpaper on a surface with imperfections such as orange peel, fisheyes, and runs, whereas a scuff pad you'd use only to bring out the tooth. First thing I do is I apply a wax and grease remover. Now we're ready to scuff or sand the surface. In some cases, all you need to do is just scuff the surface. For example, this panel here, the surface is already smooth. We don't need to sand it down or get it down to a smooth finish. All we need to do is basically get the tooth out so that we can promote adhesion. And in that case, all you need is a scuff pad. Scuff pads come in different grades. The most popular scuff pads are red and gray, red being the coarser of the two. Wipe the surface down. This takes off any of the residue left from the wax and grease remover. And then I'll come in and I'll dry the Windex off with another clean cloth. You'll see it start to dry clean. I'm going to render some cool elements here. We're going to be doing some chrome. We're going to be doing some horn texture over here. We're going to be doing some flesh tone. We're going to be doing some biomechanical stuff over here. There's going to be some more chrome over here. We're going to have a little cool robotic creature going on. And then again, back to some chrome and just a whole bunch of cool elements. We're also going to add some slime going on over here. And there might be some surprises on the way. First, we're going to start off with this torn border that goes all around the image. And before we do that, I want to lay down some transfer tape so that we can draw the image onto here. Since I do a lot of work on motorcycles and curved surfaces, I prefer using smaller widths of tape. But on this panel here, being that it's a flat panel, it probably would be more advantageous to use the larger width. Now I'm squeegeeing everything down. Basically, this is plastic squeegee used for sign supply and sign application. And you want to press this down and make sure you got good contact with the board and it's not going to lift up when you spray. Now we want to position the drawing down as best as we can. And basically what we want to do is we want to line up the border with the backing that we made for it. And I'm checking to make sure that all these borders are lining up and they're still behind the tape and it looks good. So I'll go ahead and I'll tape this down, hold it in place. Now that we've got this placed, we want to go ahead and put some registration marks. Basically we want to draw a line here and then follow along, put another one here. It's good to keep some in the bottom. This helps you line up the drawing later on when we have to transfer the line drawings of the face here onto the cutout border. And now we're ready to transfer the lines from the drawing onto the masking material. We're going to be using Cybergirl paper. This is what it looks like. Basically, this is like carbon paper, except it's wax-free. There's a dark side and then there's a light side. The dark side is the side that contains the material that transfers over. Now what we're going to do is we're going to use this stuff to transfer the lines in the drawing onto the lines of the masking material. Basically, you want to place this underneath. You want to use some kind of pencil or pen to trace the design, and basically you're doing like a carbon copy effect here, and we want to trace the whole contour of the design. Actually, right now would be a good time to check and see if it's transferring, and it is. Sometimes it helps when you make your copy of the design to keep the contrast down or keep a different color. If I were using a red pen or something, it'd be a little easier to see where I did lay all the lines down. This way you can see where you've gone. Sometimes you have a black drawing with a black pen and you can't see the lines as you're tracing them, and then sometimes you get a phone call or something, you get interrupted and you go back and you can't tell where you left off. But this way I can see what I'm doing now. Also, another thing I want to mention is Cybergirl paper is reusable. Actually, this piece, this is the second time I'm using it. And that's it for the contour. And now we're ready to cut out the border. We're going to be using an X-Acto knife and a brand new blade. Sometimes you got to go over these overlaps on the tape. You got to go there twice. Make sure you're not pressing very hard. With a brand new blade, all you got to do is basically let the weight of the blade itself to press down. That's probably just enough weight to cut all the way through without cutting into the metal. At this point, we cut a section that we could probably already start peeling up here just to make sure that we're cutting good enough. It's a good idea to, pull out a section at a time just to see how your cutting is coming along. You can tell if you didn't cut enough because the paper will tear where the cut line is supposed to be. It would tear. In this case, I'm getting a good cut. And now I can continue cutting. Okay. Okay, now we're ready to start spraying some color. I got my airbrush and my color in the cup. And as you may notice, I also have my respirator, which I always wear at all times. I've sprayed the white, and sometimes when you're spraying the white, you dust it on lightly and you get some loose debris. We want to come in with a tack rag and take all that off. What you want to do is you want to open it up, and then you want to just make a ball. Then you want to come in and pick up any loose debris. This is going to help you later on. Sometimes you get that loose paint dust underneath, and when you go ahead with some other colors over it, later on with a wipe or so, layers will come off and you'll get some white showing through. You don't want that. Now if this were black or something, you'd see the dust on there, so you really won't see anything on the tack rag. But that's pretty much it. We're ready to start transferring. Now we're going to transfer the image to the surface. We want to line up the drawing. Remember those registration marks we laid down earlier? We want to get those just right. Okay, everything lines up. Now I'm coming in with the transfer paper. I'm going to slide it underneath. Get it up as high as you can. Then we want to line this up. Ready to go. Okay, now we want to start outlining the drawing. And contour is already there and it's already cut out, so we just want to start doing all the lines that are inside the border. And now for the unveiling. Now we're ready to start mixing some color and start painting. Again, we're going to come in with the tack rag and we're going to pull off any loose debris, especially since we just transferred this image. The Cybergirl paper sometimes leaves like a chalky residue, and we want to pick up as much as possible. And there's some of the residue on the tack rag. This white is going to serve two purposes. First, it's going to start building up some light source, a foundation for the other colors as well. And also, I'm going to use it to knock down some of these pencil lines. I want to mute them down so that they're not so abrupt. So I'm picking top left as my light source. After this, I'm going to be mixing some semi-opaque colors. that are gonna lay over this white, and it's gonna show through. It's gonna give me some brighter areas, and the colors will show through. I want to make this thing here look three-dimensional. This white also works kind of like a fixative, because what it does is it sets down that chalky residue from the Surround paper. Even after we do all this light source, I'm going to go ahead over the whole thing and knock everything down. And working with white, I like to think of it as almost sculpting. This is where you really start to build your form up. Basically, the way I think is anything that I want to raise up or to make it look like it's coming forward, I give it light. The closer it is to you, the more light it'll catch. And anything that I want to push back, make it look like there's a hole, for example, I'll go in with dark color. So right now we're working with white, so I'm just worrying about making anything stand out and come up, anything that I'm pulling forward now. At this point, you don't have to get real sharp with everything. We're just building a foundation. Worry about all the detailing later. And then besides picking little areas like the cheekbones and the nose, the whole face is basically a sphere. So we want to go ahead and in the center here, make that brighter. We want to create a soft cheek line right here. This process also builds up a lot of overspray and fumes. You might want to wear a mask during this. I'm not wearing one right now because for demonstration purposes so you can hear me talk, but normally I'd be wearing one with this. Okay, now we're going to the neck. We want to think like a cylinder. The center area here a little brighter. And then we want to think chrome over here because the neck piece is going to be chrome. Besides light source, it's going to have reflections, which we're going to build up later on. Sometimes when working with an area like the hand, where it's in the foreground and then you still have her breast and her shoulder in the background, sometimes it's easier to worry about the background first, foreground later. And now let's go to this little robotic pet she's got, sort of like a snake. First think like a cylinder. Now we're going to go ahead to the face. We got two spheres right here. Reflection on the sphere is like this. Basically it's a reflection of land and sky, and here's where the sky starts. That dark area I'm reserving is gonna represent the land part. And then over here, the brow is basically a curved cylinder here. So we're gonna do the same thing, drop reflection here. And remember, right now we're just building up the light source. The dark areas we're gonna get later. At this point, any mistakes can be easily corrected. No need to stress out over getting this perfect. Same thing over here, the sphere. And then over here, this is a combination of sphere and cone. And then I want to form a cone shape that connects to the cheekbone here. Do the best you can with that right now. Maybe later on we'll have to bust out the micron. I'm pretty happy with this guy for now. Let's move on to another area. She's got this armor bra. This is basically a reflection of the horizon line, which is brighter along the edge and center. I'm going to do the best to work around the stuff that's in the foreground now. I'm not going to worry about it too much because I can always work in the foreground last. You can try to keep the foreground a little clean, but don't get hung up over it. The face I want to stand out, so I'm going to go a little brighter with the face. Just do the best you can. Now I'm just going to knock down a lot of these pencil lines. Okay, I want to put a chrome reflection line over here. The horns are going to cast their own reflection over here. So I'll continue this highlight up to here and then stop it because this is the reflection I'm building here of the horn. You've always got to try to plan out ahead what you think is going to happen. Do the best you can. Look at as much chrome as you can and try to understand how reflections work. And remember, this is a fantasy painting, so you don't have to get it perfect. You just want to give it that feel. Okay, we're getting close to the end here. I'm just going to go over any pencil lines that really look strong. In the next step, we're going to go with some semi-opaque colors. So what will happen is, because they're semi-opaque, they'll help hide some of those lines also. Alright, I think we're done with this. Alright, I want to make a nice slimy looking green. So I'm going to start with a phthalo green, and then this is a pretty strong opaque yellow, so you have to be pretty careful pouring that in there. This is making that color semi-opaque because the first color was pretty transparent. You want to stir that up and see what you got, and I think that looks pretty good. This is medium temperature reducer. I have this pretty thin right now. I'd say it's about 1:1. Okay, we want to outline this line. Again, this is a foundation color. After that, we're going to shadow this, highlight it, do a bunch of stuff to make it look more realistic, and give it some form, some three-dimensional feel to it. Try to keep it as clean as possible. A little overspray is fine because we're going to come in with other colors later again. Right now this green looks pretty good, and I could choose to make it even brighter, but I want some of the other colors in the foreground to stand out. So I might make this color a little less vibrant and maybe shading it with some browns and blacks. I'm not quite sure yet, but we'll see what happens. When doing the slime, it's a good time to decide what you know. Some stuff goes over, some stuff goes under. When I was laying it out in white, it didn't matter much, but here is where you can start deciding. It gives it a nice layered effect look. Now for the fun part, chrome. Let me show you how I mix the colors. Starting with some phthalo blue. Some white, start lightly first, mix and see what you got. That's not bad, but I want it a little bit lighter than that. I'm going to go for a lighter sky blue. That's what I'm looking for. So that's going to be the foundation sky color, and I think I'm pretty happy with that. And now we're going to mix the land color. I like to start out with a gray. Some black and white will make the gray. I like in between a brown and a gray, giving me like a warm gray. So let's see what I get here first and then we'll tweak it. That's pretty good, but I want to warm that color up some more, so I'm going to add a few drops of yellow. And that's starting to warm up pretty good. Then I'm going to go with some orange, maybe 2 drops of orange. That's not bad. I want it a little bit warmer, so I'm going to go with some more yellow. This yellow is also lightening it. It's an opaque yellow, so I don't want to get it too light, but this is pretty good because I might want to go lighter anyway. I'd say about 2 more drops of yellow and 2 drops of orange. Now, I wouldn't go giving you a dot for dot ratio because truthfully it really depends on the paint that you're using. Some paints are more potent than others and more concentrated, so the drop for drop ratio won't really work for everyone. And I think that's pretty good there. Okay. Okay, I'm going to start up here. I want to work in here. This is about where the sky color will go. Now we'll go to the collar. Collars are cylinders, so it won't get a whole lot of sky color. A little bit of blue on the sides. Alrighty, that's good enough for the collar. Now we're going to go on the little robot dude. This side can have very little blue, something like that. Over here on the brow, it's very blue. It can be a little heavier on the sides to make it darker. You want to show some of that white that we put there previously. You don't want to cover it completely. Now we're doing the eyes. Okay, let's go to her top. Same thing over here, as long as you can still see it, which you can. It's really faint, but you can see it. Since this spot right here is actually a plane that's facing the sky, you want to put a little bit of blue in there, and then the tops of these pieces here, they're facing the sky also, so I'll just put a little bit of blue in there. And now we're going to see some land reflections. You can see where the white is outlining where I'm supposed to go. Actually, I'm going to change that. I'm looking more, I want it to swoop up like that. This color being a little darker will cover that, so. This is that warm color we mixed up earlier. It's a warm gray. I'm not using it full strength. Right toward this edge here, I want a nice sharp line. The rest of the areas, you can fade them down. Now here, there's a bevel. That bevel is going to catch a lot of land, facing down to the ground basically. So I want to get that edge and really enhance that. Right now, we're just going to do some basic shading, and then I'm going to do some reflections, some distortions in the reflections. You want it to look random. I'll stop just about here because it'll start reflecting sky. We'll do something like this. But you want to add some of these also. Don't go too crazy with those right now. I'm probably jumping the gun a little bit here, having a little fun. But you want to add some of these also. That makes it look like this is really round and it's really distorting the reflection. Some of them you can even keep a little soft. They don't have to be all real sharp. There's an outline here. It's almost like the helmet has like a little carved in section here. I want to separate that. I don't want to separate with a hard line, so I'm going to do a little distortion in the reflection. On this section here, it does this, and here it might drop down and maybe a little higher or something to separate those two. Later on, a highlight along this edge will really make it look carved out. All along this edge here, I want to keep it pretty dark. And another area where it should have its own little reflection. This bevel here, you're going to want to make it pretty dark. It's facing down. Also, we'll add some reflections. I was thinking of doing this like a black or a dark color. So we can go ahead and start putting this reflection in here. And again, let's play with this little hump here. Actually, let's drop it down on this one. It doesn't have to be too fancy, just right now some shadow color. Just a base for what I may lay down later. Now I'm going to go to the collar here. Now right on the edge here you want to put some reflections. It's going to be really dark ones. Maybe a reflection from her chin, which later on we can put some flesh color over that. Make it look like the reflection is coming from her face. And now one over here. I think I'm happy with that there. Now let's go to the little guy here. You want to put these reflections towards the bottom here. And I want to put one towards the back. Not coming all the way in because I want mostly sky color up here. I was trying to get real tight here, so you want to get in real close, just like the headpiece she's wearing. Basically a sphere. Now it's starting to get real tight here, so you want to get in real close. And this is just like the hat, the headpiece she's wearing. basically a sphere.
And I'm going to roll it all the way up because this brow should be casting a reflection in the shadow. So I'm going to bring this up almost up to here. Then I'm going to fade it down like this. I go from the center horizon line and then I fade down. There are also a couple of distortions in there. Now to the brow. Give it some bumps there.
Those bumps actually make it look like it could be a distortion in the reflection, or it could be a carved out where there's a almost like a sphere, or in the brow there's a break that's causing those lines to do that.
Either way, you get a pretty realistic effect.
Now I'm going to show you a trick for a little bit more realistic feeling. When doing these breaks, it's almost like links. You can distort the reflection line here right at the break of every line, and that gives it almost like a rounded off look. And then later on we'll enhance that with some highlights right there.
Let's go to the brow now. Just going to repeat what's on the other side here.
And right along this edge here, I want to separate this. I want this to look like a little trimming around it. Stands out a little bit more than her brow itself. Okay, now we'll go to this one here. I'll go lightly across everything. It's a faint line. Right along this edge here, I want to separate this. I want this to look like a little trimming around it. Stands out a little bit more than her brow itself.
Here I'm just going to continue detailing the chrome reflections. I'll go lightly across everything, just a faint line, and then I'll go ahead and darken the areas that I want. Okay, here you're painting around the foreground, so do the best you can to keep it looking continuous. The fade should line up over here. Where it's going to get tricky is when we start doing these distortion lines. Those are going to get tricky because we have to go all the way across. It's probably a good time right now to start outlining softly some of this change so you don't lose it. There you can put a little dip in the reflection right here. Now let's do some of these. Piece of slime, I'll just outline it. Now we're ready for the flesh.
You know what, this flesh tone is a little too vibrant and still too dark.
First of all, I'm going to take down some of the vibrancy by adding a drop of green. That color has already been reduced, so by getting reduced, it actually loses its potency. Now we're going to lighten it up some. Be careful with the white. You don't want to get it too light. Basically, you want to start outlining in some basic shading. The color is already mixed kind of light, so you can spray it pretty heavily where some of the shadow areas are supposed to go anyway, and you don't have to worry about getting it too dark right now. When doing the eyes, I like to create the eyelid. I want to shadow this side of the face really good.
This is just a base flesh color. Later on we're going to come in and shadow it, highlight it, get all different variations of this color.
This shadow color looks dark now, but once I start doing the rest of the shading and the rest of the flesh tone relative to the other color, it may not seem so dark. And also, this is another reason why I stopped working on the chrome.
This gives me a chance to start feeling out the rest of the tones and the rest of the painting, and this is going to determine whether I need to go ahead and darken some of the chrome or darken some of the background. It gets me there slowly and safely.
Okay, let's go ahead and put some flesh tone next to this chrome here. Keep it nice and clean as you can.
You can see the difference in the original color that I had and the new color. It doesn't matter right now because later on we're going to go ahead and shadow this color. There's going to be some more shadow colors there, and it should blend in fine. I'm going to go to the lips now. Lips, most people will go ahead and start with a red. I like starting with a flesh tone anyway. I go ahead and I tint it with some transparent red or whatever it takes. You know, lips aren't bright red all the time. Now when doing lips, the upper lip is a plane that's facing down, so that one gets mostly shadow, where the bottom lip comes out and it catches light from the top. So that's why this one's dark and this one's light.
Don't forget to put some shadowing in the corner of her mouth.
It helps if you've done portraits a lot. I've done a lot of portraits in my time, and I kind of use all that knowledge to make me mimic portrait work.
Put some flesh tone in the bottom here.
Same time I'm cleaning up the overspray from the green.
Always underneath the brows, you want to keep it pretty dark there. I think that's enough for the face. I don't want to go too far. It's better to be safe than sorry, so let's stop here and start working on her lower body. A little outlining first, then we start doing some shading. That shadow on her collarbone. We can outline this slime over here. Now let's go to the hand. Go over the rest of the face. It's alright if you get a little bit of overspray on the white of the eyes. You don't want bright white eyes anyway. Even a little bit of overspray. I could even go into the chrome a little bit. It's not that big a deal. All those colors should be reflecting off each other anyway. I might even go ahead and put some flesh color in the chrome here. Just a little bit. We're getting very close here.
Now we're going to mix our next color. Basically, we're going to use the same color we mixed earlier as a base, and then we're going to tweak it some. We're going to start off with some red oxide. Then I'm going to go ahead and add some purple. And then a drop or two of green. Now we want to mix that up.
Okay, let me show you how much paint I have in the gun. This gives you an idea of the ratio that I like to use. Usually with this much paint, which is probably about 1/5 of an ounce, I'm going to go ahead and add about 5 drops of retarder. Then you want to stir it up a bit, close it up, give it a good shake, and then get the spray going down into the nozzle. Okay, let's try this out.
Basically, I already laid out a foundation for where the shadows are going. I'm just coming in and darkening them up a bit. Also, I want to mention that because we're not working from a photo reference, it's not real crucial to get a certain or an exact flesh tone. So that'll help you out a bit. I mean, you don't have to, there's nothing here we're trying to match. Mixing flesh tones, basically you get it close to what you've used in the past. But when doing portraits, it's crucial to try to get as close to the flesh tone in the photo reference.
Okay, here we want to get a nice shadow close to the edge. Basically, I'm doing some outlining first to clean up that edge, and then the shading. Then I'll go over the whole thing lightly. Then the chain also.
Okay, I'm evaluating the painting now, and I'm good with my middle tones. I think I have all that down. All I need on the flesh tones, I need some extreme darks, extreme shadows, and then finally some of the final highlights with white, which I'm going to do at the very end. Also, I'm noticing that the contrast now, in comparison to the flesh tone, that some of the chrome looks a little light, especially around here. The center parts look pretty good, but I probably could have faded that and brought that down. Later on, I'm going to come in with some extreme darks in the chrome, and I can take care of that in the end. Okay, I'm going to take out that last flesh color that we had, the darker middle tone, and I'm going to dump that into the cup. I'm going to use that as a base. I don't want to be quite black, but I do want to be close to it.
I want a little bit of color, but pretty much an unsaturated dark color. That's looking pretty good. I'm probably going to add some red oxide to that. This red oxide can really be strong, so easy with that. A little goes a long way. That's looking pretty good. And even with that, I'm still not using the color full strength. I'm still shading with it and lighter variations of it. You can even bring this color into the chrome some. Go into some of the darkest, deepest areas. Like right here is a good place for this color. And then out here also. This is a good color to do eyebrows with also, or at least the base of them. You want to start doing some textures first and then some light shading over it. Okay, I'm going to come to this eye now. Start laying out some of the eyelashes, and let's do some of the eyebrow. Stop and look, and I see we could put a little more dark over here. I like to tackle the real dark areas first with this color, and that would be these areas here. Again, I'll use this color in some of the dark areas here. Cast shadows for the chain. I want to kill all the white. I'm basically using the same lines that are already in there, just looking for spots to put more detail and more activity as far as reflections is concerned.
Okay, now we're going to do the horns. I'm going to be painting those black.
First I want to outline them, and then I'm going to be shading them in like this.
Okay, I'm using a straight black here. It's a straight black, but it's reduced pretty heavily so that it's a nice weak black, and I can build it up slowly.
I just want to build up the basic form with some shading, and then later on I can add some texture. Make it look like there are two parts to it, like there's a base kind of holding the horn in place. You guys will notice that I don't do one continuous line. I kind of do a series of wisps that will make one line. I find this an easier way to control where my lines are going. You don't get a crisp or a sharp line, but I just keep it light and then I'll sharpen it up later on with some loose masking or other method. Start giving this some texture. I'm going to go with some lines going across, but I want to keep with the shape of the horn. It's rounded, so I want to go follow that round pattern. Just randomly make some of these lines a little darker. A lot of variation. You want some of them to be dark and some of them to be extremely dark. And later on, we're going to enhance this texture with some highlighting. Now right in here we want to go a bit heavier with the black. Okay, that's looking pretty good on there. Basically, these are little dagger strokes. Now the dark of the eyes.
Okay, I want to do some tinting now. I'm calling it tinting because I've already got the basic shadows. I'm going to give her some green. This is the same green that we used in the background where the slime is. It's a semi-opaque color. Basically, I added some opaque yellow in there and I made this more of a limier green, and it's lighter and it's also opaque. I just want to get this little lower part here really nice and bright. Gives it almost a look like a jewel. The eyes are kind of like that.
Later on, we're going to give it some shine and make it look like it's wet and translucent.
Also, this guy has two little nostrils going on over here. I never got those in there.
Okay, let's go to the lower portion here. Do some highlighting on her shoulders. Again, this is skin, so you want to do soft highlights. You don't want to make it look too glossy.
I'm working at about 30 psi right now. I find that and weakened black right now, that's a good combination. Just go around and look where you might need some more. Like in some of this flesh, I could probably put some dark areas, especially where it's behind this border here. Looking at this, I feel the blue needs to get a little darker, so I'm going to go ahead and I got that same blue that we mixed originally, that semi-opaque blue. I added some more phthalo blue and I made it a little stronger. Just a little bit stronger. Okay. I'm going to put some blue inside here also, so it looks like some black chrome. Alright, now we're going to mix the color for the lips. I like to start with an opaque red, then I'll come in with a little bit of purple. Then I'm going to stir that up. Okay, I think that looks good. All I got to do is thin it and get ready to spray. And basically you want to tint those lightly. Let some of the flesh color show through. Right above the eyelids. And that's it. Now I'm ready to start working on the background. But before I do that, I want to protect her face with clear transfer tape. I just want to expose the green area, because that's where I'm going to be working at. We're trying to protect the face here, and all we want to do is expose this green area that's going to have the slime and the biomechanical flames. And here where we have the eyelashes, don't worry about that too much right now because we can always come back and put that in. We're using Transfer Right brand clear transfer tape. Also, I want to mention that this transfer tape, if it's not pressed down tightly, it'll look almost like a milky color. It doesn't seem as transparent. So you want to go ahead and press it down. It'll look kind of like this, where you don't see the line, but if you press it down, you can see the line a little clearer. So that's going to help you knowing where to cut. I've now changed to a dark green, and I'm going to use this color to shadow in and outline some of this webbing that's going on here. And also I want to make this color here darker around her. You could do some other fuzzy ones in the background. Some more webbing that's not sketched in. Just giving it some texture. Making it look interesting. The reason I didn't mask off the whole face is because I'm not building up enough overspray here to damage any of those areas. I just wanted to keep the edges pretty clean. I'm still keeping my overspray controlled and to a minimum. And that completes the background. Okay, we're ready to start coloring the biomechanical flames, and I'm going to mask those off too using the same method with clear transfer tape. This is what I had mentioned earlier about using the squeegee. Notice how you can see the lines a little better when you do this. Okay, I think that's it. There's a little problem right here where this line doesn't meet up with this line. We'll go ahead and fix that with some masking tape. Okay, I'm coming in with an opaque chrome yellow that I mixed up, and we want to cover up all that little green overspray that came up when we were doing the background color. I'm going to come in with another color and enhance this. So right here where you can see some overspray, we spray a little heavier there. Okay, I think this is good enough. Just check, make sure there's no green showing through or anything like that. And then I'm ready for the next color. Okay, now I'm coming in with an orange, and I want to start rendering in some of this detailing. This is an orange, just a straight orange that I added some candy orange to it, because the straight orange is a little opaque, and I wanted to give it a little bit more transparent look. Maybe we could give it some brain texture in here. Let's have fun. Gave it a really vibrant because I wanted to have like a graphic look. Shape of a traditional flame. And then I'm still giving it its traditional colors, real bright orange and yellow. And now we're going to remove the masking. I like to call this blocking in. I use that term because it's a way for me to block in flat color first, and then I'll come in later and enhance that color by giving it a shadow color and then a highlight color. Now before I start enhancing this color some more, I'm going to go ahead and use it while I have it. I like this blue because it's a less vibrant blue, and I'll knock these vibrant blues down a bit. Okay, now we're going to come for the shadow color. I'm going with a real weak black as the shadow color. I'm also going to use this color to make the chain look a little weathered, put some scratches in it, some rust, dirt. Let's start with the basic shadows first. Okay, I want to weather this up a bit. Just put some squigglies in it, like if there's some dirt or something in there. And I want to darken these a little bit more because they're getting a shadow from the border. Okay, I want to point something out to you and at the same time show you how I fix it. See this hard edge here that we got from that backmasking? I want to make it match more like the soft lines that we have in the face. So I'm going to show you how I go about that. First, I mix this dark green that we have in here. So I'm going to come in with that first, and I'm going to go ahead right along the edge, and that's going to help soften it. Be careful not to bring it too much into the yellow because yellow is such a bright color, this will really ruin it. Also on the right side of the painting here on her neck, there's another spot that needs softened. To continue softening that edge around her face, I already did the dark color with the green. I could also come in with a flesh color, which I don't have mixed up, but I do have a blue color that I use to do the blocking in on the chain. I'm going to use that color because right here you can see the chrome could be reflecting some blue light underneath her chin, and sometimes I can carry that around and it'll look good. Now later on I'll enhance this color with some white because I'm going to have to do white highlights anyway. Okay, I think that softens it up enough. This is the green that I use for the base in the background color. Semi-opaque. I don't want to cover the flesh tone completely. Later on we're going to give it some shine, make it look like it's shiny and translucent. Okay, that pretty much shows how I'm going to be doing the slime. I'm going to be doing the same thing over here. Okay, I finished the rest of the slime off camera and this is what it turned out like.
Now I'm going to come in with the white highlight. This little edge right here, for example, I want to make that lip stand out, so that'll catch the light. Put a highlight on that. Also right along the horizon line
of the land reflection, I like to put the indication of like sunlight where it's a little brighter down here. Just put some white in there. Now with these highlights, the sharper you do them, the more reflective the surface looks.
There might be some light source up there that's catching. And you've got a real hot spot right there.
Now this piece here is different than this piece, so I want to make this one also look like it's catching some light from here. It's on a different plane, so that one might catch a little bit more light there.
Try to follow some of the lines you already have established in there. Use those as guides for where you want to put highlights.
Good spot for a hot spot right there. Maybe another one here.
Okay, I'm going to do some highlights on the horns. Basically, I'm going to go over those lines that are already there, and I'm just going to enhance them. Wherever there's a dark line, I highlight just below it.
Okay, now we're going to do some highlighting on the skin. The skin is going to get a matte finish look, so the highlights are going to be a little softer, whereas the lips and the eyes are glossy, they'll get sharper highlights.
Okay, I want to do some highlighting on the lips, and right on the lip here is going to be fairly wet. Just along the lip edge there is usually a highlight. On this part of the lip here, I'll first start off with a soft highlight that gives me a path of where these textured highlights are going to go. Also, I'm going to come in with some white over here, softly, to give it that look of catching some light. And now to get her eyes. Okay, I'm going to go under the chin now. I just want right underneath here in the center of the chin where it'll catch the most light to brighten up a little more. Okay, let's go to the lower portion here. Do some highlighting on her shoulders. Again, this is skin, so you want to do soft highlights. You don't want to make it look too glossy. Her breast is going to be like a sphere, and we want to get a brighter highlight. But it's right behind the finger, so I want to go ahead and do a soft outline around the finger and then fade outward. A little light in the cleavage here. I want to highlight around this shadow here. Okay, let's do some highlighting on this guy. He's made up of a bunch of links, so each link will get a highlight. Maybe just a dot in every corner here. Maybe a little dagger stroke. Just some hot spots on a few of them. Now I'm going to go into the brows and the horns. Sometimes you can just put a light here and there. There could be a reflection anywhere. It could be anything. Like we did on the face earlier, I want to go ahead and bring some light coming up the side of her arms and shoulders. Then go over here on the side of her breast. Alright, now I'm going to do some highlighting on the chain. Maybe some textured highlights. I'm pretty much going to repeat this on the rest of the chain links. Okay, now let's do some highlighting on her little nail weapons. Okay, we're going to do some highlighting in the biomechanical flames, and you just want to put little highlights here and there.
Something like that. Okay, and that's it for the highlighting on the biomechanical flames.
Now let's do some highlighting on the webbing. I just want to make them look a little bit wet. You don't want to do all of them, you just want to do the ones that are in the foreground.
And now we're going to remove the masking and reveal the border. Although chrome, flesh, and some of the other textures I showed you can be very challenging, they can also be extremely rewarding. I hope you gained something from this presentation. Thank you for watching.